this was by both communities. Shops were being damaged, a mandir was being damaged, a masjid was being damaged. So these were incidents that sparked and further on continued throughout the next few days. This is an attempt by the BJP to some extent to, politicize and communalize the situation. These are usually small groups, relatively speaking, to the population. So why would we condemn either, community on the basis of an action of, maybe a few hundreds of people, and create these type of false narratives that it's Hindu versus Muslim. We're talking about religion, but what we're forgetting about is we're actually talking about religion being used in politics. The fault lines are being created by political parties to some extent. They're here to worsen the situation. Sukandar Mujamdar, who is the BJP president of West Bengal, he came to Malda and he also has come to Murshidabad saying, Haswa Dhorelen, means pick up weapons to fight. I mean, what kind of language is this? That the TMC has a history of violence in West Bengal. In many elections, in the panchayat elections, it's a party which, in its quest for power, always allows violence, fosters violence. This is not a one-off incident. Like I said, it's happened in Malda a few weeks ago. It's happened in Murshidabad, I think a few months ago, various times. It's happened in different areas of Bengal.
Hello and welcome to HD's weekly talk show, The Interview. West Bengal is in the throes. Communal violence has gripped several districts in the state. Murshidabad is burning. There are deaths, loot, arson, and a large-scale exodus. Hindus, says the BJP, are being hunted. The trigger? The Waqf Amendment Bill. But is this the real reason, or is it a mere excuse for something deeper? Is it politics? Is it a blame game? What about TMC alleging, quote unquote, a larger conspiracy and the BJP hitting back? We have with us Isha Khan Chowdhury, Member of Parliament, to tell us the real story of Murshidabad violence. Khan represents the Malda Dakshin constituency, where Hindus from Murshidabad are camping. That apart, 2 assembly segments of Murshidabad form part of his Lok Sabha constituency. Of these, Samserganj assembly segment is the worst hit. Therefore, who better than him to bring in the right perspective? Isha Khan Chowdhury here with us on HD's weekly talk show, The Interview. Welcome to the show, Mr. Isha Khan Chowdhury, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Kumkum. Thank you very much for inviting me on your show.
Let me begin with the basic. Without indulging in a blame game, give me an objective assessment of how the violence started in the state and maybe capture the sequence of events.
Well, the recent violence in Murshidabad, Dhulian municipality, which is part of Samsarganj in Murshidabad, what I understand, it was a peaceful demonstration organized by an NGO against the Waqf bill. A lot of youngsters joined into the fray, into the demonstration. What I understand then is that it got out of control and violence started. At night, there was some retaliation in some other villages. So this thing sort of grew. It started, I think, in a small way, and it started growing, and people started responding to it in different pockets. It wasn't like one giant riot in the beginning. It was pocket violence, pocket things going out of control. Then the whole situation in many pockets in Dulian municipality of Samsarganj. Some shop is being set on fire, somebody's house is being attacked in a village. And this went on for a few days like that, response and counter response.
You said youngsters got involved. Was that a one off? Were they motivated? And were they backed by some groups, vested interest groups? And is it because they got involved that the situation got out of control?
You see, this is very hard to say. What I understand is that a lot of these youngsters, they don't necessarily follow an ideology, they don't even necessarily follow a party. So the problem is that when an incident like that happens, but the youngsters very often get hot headed and don't want to listen to people. We had a situation regarding this in Mallai, regarding the NRC, where all the different parties were there protesting and they all peacefully left, but the youngsters would not leave. Now, whether they're being backed by anything, you see, we have the police, we have the IB agencies. I think these things can always be investigated. I don't want to jump to any conclusion. Definitely, the police, the intelligence branches should definitely investigate these type of questions that you raise. It's an important question.
You mentioned Samsirganj, which is part of your parliamentary constituency, and that is the worst hit. Would you be able to narrate the sequence of events over there and how it erupted and what went wrong and where and when?
The issue is that it started very peacefully. There was absolutely no hint of any violence or communality in the issue. Later on, what I understood is that some youth joined the main demonstration, young people, and that is what caused, I think, things to go out of control. Very young people were talking, maybe 15, 16, 17-year-old people. And that's when the issue started going out of hand. Maybe the violence started. And in response to that, later in the day at night, I think at 3 a.m. in the morning, other communities started to respond and they also started some violence. So it wasn't one community issue, it became an all community issue. And this thing grew, unfortunately. It wasn't just a one spot area that became very big. It started in hotspots throughout the municipality of Dhulian in Samtraganj. There are about 22 wards, at least 14 or 15 wards that violence was sparking up in one ward, then in another ward. And this was by both communities. Shops were being damaged, a mandir was being damaged, a masjid was being damaged. So these were things, incidents that sparked and further on continued throughout the next few days.
You said that all communities got involved. What about the BJP's allegations that it is religious persecution and quote unquote Hindus are being hunted? And the second point, appeasement politics by the TMC, as the BJP alleges.
No, I think that is a very narrow way of looking at things. These unfortunately these incidents spark. These incidents have happened. I don't believe anybody is being hunted as such. I think this is an attempt by the BJP to some extent to, politicize and communalize the situation. I don't believe in generalizations. How can we say if, let's say, 100 youngsters go out of control during a demonstration, can we condemn an entire community? Can we say all the minority people who consist of lakhs and lakhs say, of people in Dulyan are all involved in that? We shouldn't say that. These are usually small groups, relatively speaking, to the population. So why would we condemn either, community for the basis on the basis of an action of maybe few hundreds of people and create these type of false narratives that it's Hindu versus Muslim. I mean, no religion preaches violence.
But that is very philosophic and perhaps idealistic. The fact remains that on ground zero, Hindus are being shunted out, and the BJP says it is religious persecution. So, what is your response to the BJP's allegation, if at all, of it being religious persecution?
I disagree with that analysis totally, that it's religious persecution. I think it's more a law and order. And I think BJP, this is not a new narrative that the BJP tries to create. In Bengal, anytime something happens, or in India when something happens, that narrative is created that, that people are being hunted. This is a very old narrative of the BJP. And anything that happens in Bengal, I've seen it before. They try to rehash this narrative, and that people are being hunted. Things spark up from time to time, and we have to definitely take these spark ups seriously. I'm not saying that it's not serious, because it's not just Murshidabad. It's happened in Bengal a few times in the last 5 or 6 months. So it's not something we should take lightly. Having said that, to blame one particular community, to make a broad stroke comment about communities, is the BJP's speciality, but I do not agree with that. It's just trying to create dissent amongst people. I would not agree with that at all.
What about the charge that it is appeasement politics by the TMC?
Well, you know, all parties to some extent appease people to gain votes. That's something else. I think the BJP here wants to play the groups, majority and minorities in our country, off each other. So, in that sense, they are the biggest creators of appeasement politics. They're always trying to show that minorities in India, and I'm not talking about Muslims only, I'm talking about the various minorities in India, are getting special treatment, so they're being appeased. I think I don't believe this narrative. What we saw in the election in 2021 is that both the TMC government, the TMC party of Mamata Banerjee, and the BJP were with the NRC trying to scare voters. And that's one reason why we as Congress didn't do very well in 2021. Malda and Murshidabad, the vote, if you see, became polarized between the BJP and the TMC. So here, both parties are trying to, I would say, use appeasement politics in that sense. That's done by TMC saying we'll protect you from the BJP, and the BJP saying we'll protect the majority population from minorities. So this is a political game. We're talking about religion, but what we're forgetting about is we're actually talking about religion being used in politics, rather the politicization of religion.
So, coming back to the Murshidabad violence, what and where were and are the fault lines? Let's be specific on that.
I'm very sad to say the fault lines are being created by political parties to some extent. They're here to worsen the situation. Sukandar Mujamdar, who is the BJP president of West Bengal, he came to Malda, and he also has come to Murshidabad saying, Haswa Dhorelen, means pick up weapons to fight. I mean, what kind of language is this where you've just had riots or you've had violence? What kind of language is this? I would say the politicians in some cases are the fault line. The politics of religion is now becoming the fault line.
Or Yogi Adityanath saying, लातों के भूत बातों से नहीं मानते.
Yeah, so my point is that these type of statements, this type of inciting is being done by politicians nowadays. So if all political parties play this game, it's a very dangerous game, and it worsens the situation right at the present and for the future. So as politicians, all parties must be very responsible in their statements and their handling of the situation. The BJP comes to Bengal and does not talk about peace between communities. I remember in Mothabari 2 weeks ago, Malda, the BJP came, did not once talk about unity or peace. He was talking about the weaponization and fighting. We as Congress people, we want to take religion out of politics.
You know, that's a tall claim you're making because the Congress has always indulged in appeasement of minorities.
Appeasement is a word that is thrown around in political circles. What do we exactly mean? Do we mean that any type of program, like a government program to support any particular community, Dalit community or a minority community. Is that appeasement? These words are thrown around. I never know what they mean when parties say this party is appeasing. You're talking about that's something else. But I don't think that's what the BJP is, or critics of the West Bengal government are trying to say. The BJP leaders have come to Murshidabad saying the jihadism is terrorism. Again, we have to be very careful with these words. To brush the entire population of, let's say, Murshidabad or Dhule and Samsarganj as jihadis is absolutely absurd. They're extremists, or they're people, lawless people in all communities. That is a philosophical point, but it's also a fact. So it's not religion. Lawlessness has no religion. It comes from all backgrounds.
Between the two, between the BJP and the TMC, you seem to think, from what I understand from what you're saying, that the BJP is really to blame for the situation escalating.
No, I'm saying that the BJP uses irresponsible statements, conveys irresponsible messages. I'm not saying that they've made it more violent. I'm saying that it brings a risk of more violence by making statements like that, extremist statements. You bring the risk in the future of more communalization, of more distance between people in different communities. I'm not necessarily saying they're responsible for every single incident. That's not what I mean. And also regarding the TMC, I would like to say that the TMC has a history of violence in West Bengal. In many elections, in the panchayat elections, it's a party which, in its quest for power, always allows violence, fosters violence. So this is again having, I think, a bad effect on the youth in West Bengal. Because if you allow violence during, let's say, a panchayat election, where the police don't take proper action, where the police turn a blind eye a lot of the time, or the administration especially turns blind eye to malpractices during election time, what type of message is that teaching the youngsters of today? I think TMC's attitude towards law and order for many issues. What about the RG Gore incident where in the hospital in Calcutta where a doctor was murdered? Today, still, there's only one person who has been arrested, and neither the West Bengal government has totally failed in bringing the people to justice who have killed a very innocent doctor. This type of lawlessness in general, I'm not just talking about religious lawlessness, in our state is increasing day by day. And that is because the TMC supports a lot of sometimes, anti-socials, and allows them to have a free reign during elections, during other times. So I think that has a price in the state. I think that gives the message to people that violence is allowed to everybody. It's not just to one community. It gives a message to everybody that violence is allowable. 50 people died in the last panchayat election. And the chief minister's reaction was, well, this happens every election. So this is a very unfortunate thing in Bengal. Violence, unfortunately, has become part of Bengal's political culture, become part of the culture. So there the TMC has a huge responsibility.
Talking of elections, do you think the recent violence will become one of the major issues ahead of the assembly elections in the state, which are expected next year?
In short, yes. What I see, this has happened before with NRC. Both parties, it became a bipolar contest in 2021. I see this as NRC Part 2. I see that if this violence continues, I mean, Murshidabad is not the only violence. In Malda, we had a smaller incident, but we had an incident also a few weeks ago. In Murshidabad, I think a few months ago, there was a large incident. In Bengal, in different places, these violent incidents are happening. So definitely, I think that the major two parties who are in power, the BJP and the Trinamool, will, with the word you use to some extent. Now, I don't mean appeasement I mean, they will definitely try to harden their vote banks. They will definitely try to use religion. So what I expect to see is that BJP will be going to our Hindu brothers and saying that, you see, we are the only people in the state who can defend you against the evil minorities. And on the other side, the Trinamool party will be going to minority voters and saying, look, if the BJP comes to power, then you'll be kicked out of the country. You'll not be allowed to live. The Waqf bill will be implemented on the ground in Bengal. So definitely I see this as both parties, both ruling parties, as trying to exploit these incidents, these violent incidents, for their forthcoming election. That is definitely, whereas we in Congress would like to tell people that live in harmony, be in harmony, don't get politicized, don't allow religion to get politicized. This is Rahul Gandhi's message that he said many times, a beautiful message. Nafrat ki bazaar mein mohabbat ki dukaan khuliye. We don't want the election to be fought on religion. But I think, as you said, as you pointed out, this very well may happen. These incidents will be used in the future in the election. These will be issues brought up by BJP and TMC parties.
Ostensibly, the trigger for the violence seems to be the Waqf Act. Is that just an excuse, with the real reasons being very different?
That is one of the reasons. That is one of the, like I said, it's one of the sentiments, religious sentiments, that they feel that the central government is, trying to target them in bill after bill, issue after issue. So that could be some sort of a trigger. One part is that I guess the minorities do feel marginalized. And the other part, like I said, is the political parties in the political space playing fire with religious politics. It's the radicalization of politics by political parties themselves, who I think are, worsening the situation.
What about the Hindus alleging that it is systematic targeting, and what led to the mass exodus of Hindus?
It was not really an exodus. It is about 150 families have been kept have been shifted from Dulian Samsarganj side across the river to Malda side, to a place in Boishamnagar, the constituency is called. And there's a school there where there are about 450 people. So it's not a mass exodus. It was a certain group of people in a certain number of wards in Dulian which have been moved there. I don't know if you call that a mass exodus, but yeah, it's a pity, it's a shame. I would call that any people would have to leave their houses for issues of safety and issues of attack. That is very sad, no doubt about that.
What about the allegation that it is systematic targeting of Hindus?
Well, again, I don't think that there's a systematic targeting. I think it was an unfortunate law and order event. Some people, some youngsters went out of control. And this happened in both communities. Both communities started losing their cool. And it grew into a thing where in different wards it spread. So wouldn't like to say, I don't know what we mean by systematic.
So let me remove the word systematic and let me just say targeting of Hindus upfront.
Obviously, when there's a conflict, some people have have been targeted. Some people have been attacked, whether and on both sides. I mean, I just want to clarify that in Samsarganj, Julian, minority shops, minority houses, masjids have also been damaged. People have been attacked on both sides, on both communities, not just a one-sided thing. There was responses, counter responses. There were, the thing grew and went out of control at a certain time. So and it's not that the people who were involved initially, it's not just them. It's that people responding in a different area, maybe 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers away, they are responding on the basis of religion. It's not just one community which uh, acted irresponsibly in the end. All communities acted irresponsibly.
No, but the ones who've been forced to leave their homes are primarily Hindus.
Yes, but again, we're talking about uh, 300, 400 people, 150 families. But again, that's a tragedy in itself. Like there's no disagreement there.
So, in one sense, you somewhat agree with what the TMC is saying, that the exodus or moving out from their homes is within Bengal. So, there is nothing to worry.
Look, I'm not agreeing with any party. I'm just telling you what I know, what I've seen so far, that they were removed from their households on the basis of for safety reasons.
Mr. Khan, you're putting that rather mildly. They were not moved out because of safety reasons, they were driven out and they left because of fear.
Fine, I don't have a problem with that language. I mean, those people who did this type of action are extremists and should be brought to task, regardless of their religious background. There's no doubt about that. What we do not want to do is fall into the trap of painting a brush that all people of, let's say, the Muslim background are in Samsarganj are support this. They don't actually. Majority, I would say, do not support this.
No, no, we are deviating. That's not my question. My question is that you said that they were moved out because of safety reasons. The truth is somewhere else. They were not moved out, they were driven out and they left because they feared for their life. It's very different from what you're saying.
So I'm not going to get into the semantics of being moved out of the. They had to be moved also. I mean, the government physically had to take them from one block to another and give them a place to stay.
What about those who were driven out and left because they feared for their life?
Well, like I said, they are my people. They are my constituents. And anyone who's driven out, Hindu brothers, Muslim brothers, I am there for them. That is why I'm the MP. I'm there to see that they're rehabilitated to the maximum.
Point well taken. But the fact that they were driven out and they feared for their lives, don't you see that as targeting and actually an exodus?
These words, again, we have to be very careful. Exodus of 150 families, 400 people. I don't know if it's an exodus. It's that process. Anyway, I can tell you is not continuing anymore. That has happened, and that is factually I'm saying, as to my best of my knowledge, is not continuing anymore. And what the problem is, yes, I totally agree if the point is being made that we must make everybody feel safe in their own houses, in their own communities. 100%, we must do that. The government of West Bengal, the TMC, must ensure that these type of incidents do not happen again. If they feel that such incidents are possible, they should, with their intelligence branch, with the information they can gather, they should look at these situations very seriously.
We are not talking about investigating. I'm saying the targeting of Hindus, which is substantiated by the fact that all those who have left are only Hindus.
You see, my problem with that view is that we are sending a message that it was only one community which was then targeted or attacked.
Isn't that a fact?
It was a fact that after a Waqf demonstration, the incident started. However, all communities have been targeted. I mean, mosques have been damaged. People from minority communities have also been attacked. In that sense, different communities targeted each other. That would be a more fair statement.
Okay, I take your point that both communities were involved, fair enough. But being driven out was only one community.
Yes. So then again, what is the solution? I mean, you can't. What has happened, like I said, is a tragedy, is a travesty. It should not happen again to anybody in Bengal, of any community. And in this case, obviously, to our Hindu brothers. And for that, we must talk about then the police maybe having certain intelligence lapses, or the administration or the government have any some certain intelligence lapses, and for that the administration, the government must tighten itself up. This is not a one-off incident. Like I said, it's happened in Malda a few weeks ago. It's happened in Murshidabad, I think a few months ago. Various times it's happened in different areas of Bengal.
As an MP of Malda Dakshin, you witnessed the exodus and also visited the camps. There were tales of horror. that you heard, would you recount some of them? What did the people tell you?
Their homes were damaged. Some of them were beaten. Some of them are protesting or saying that they don't want to go back home right away, that they do not want to return to their homes right away, that they would rather they want full assurance that the law and order situation in Murshidabad is fully peaceful. They want compensation, which is very natural, for any damages they've heard. And obviously, they want people who have committed these atrocities against them to be brought to task, to be arrested, and then only they would return to their houses. I'm getting reports there's a fire being set to a mall. I'm getting reports that houses are being attacked. I'm getting reports that there are clashes. So I'm getting every 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm getting a different report in a different area. The horror story is that people are being driven out of their homes. That itself is a horror story.
On another point, do you think the Mamata government's position that they will not implement the Waqf law in Bengal is justified?
I have many objections myself to the Waqf bill, which I won't go into now. The catch-22 situation that the Mamata government might face by not implementing it is then the BJP will make an allegation that you are not implementing the law of the land. You are making a special distinction for uh, minorities in West Bengal. So I think that itself will be a catch-22 situation for the Mamata government. And then they'll face criticism. I think the better route is to go through the court, to the Supreme Court, to fight it out where we find the issues are unconstitutional.
But don't you think her or the government not implementing the Waqf law would lead to more trouble?
The Waqf bill itself, implementation or not implementation, I don't think has very much to do with, in the sense that the bill itself doesn't. It's maybe the people feeling insecure about the bill, maybe some minorities feeling insecure about the bill, which is an issue. But the bill itself, I don't think has any direct relation to anything regarding incidents or violence or anything like that.
That's the trigger.
Maybe some people feeling insecure could be one of the triggers. So again, not for me to argue the TMC's point, but then the TMC would, I guess, say that not implementing it right now might make people feel more secure. But you see, that's their argument to make. That's not my argument.
Let me quote what the BJP is saying about the present situation in Murshidabad. Don't let Bengal become Bangladesh. What is your take on this? Is this an exaggerated claim?
The BJP popularly always uses things like "Don't let India become Pakistan," "Don't let India become." I think India has its own history and its own secular history. So I don't think we should compare ourselves to any other country. We should be proud of our secular history and we should try to maintain the secular history that we have. Talking about Pakistan or Bangladesh, I think has no place.
Let me ask you, in the present context and against the backdrop of what has happened, would you say the state government failed to act on time?
Yes, I feel that given the number of incidents that have happened in West Bengal, given this is not the first incident, for the last 4 or 5 months across Bengal, we've been seeing these incidents. Definitely, the police, the administration, the government should be more prepared. After all police organizations have an intelligence branch. I think definitely they should have been, for this situation also in Murshidabad, much more prepared.
Both the BJP and the TMC have suggested the involvement of outsiders in the violence. BJP's Suvendu Adhikari blamed a Bangladesh outfit, while TMC leader Kunal Ghosh has pointed a finger at the BSF and said it was letting in outsiders to create violence and go back, hinting at a bigger conspiracy. What is your take?
I would not agree or jump to any conclusions as such from either of what these political parties are saying. I think we have to be much more careful just throwing around allegations, unsubstantiated allegations. These are allegations that fit a certain ideology or narrative.
Would you say that the strategy of the state government is to divide and rule, or even of the center for that matter?
Unfortunately, there is an element to their politics which is yes, they utilize these situations, especially the BJP. This was a strategy during the NRC during the election in 2021. Like now, it might be used, or it is being used to some extent by the BJP for certain.
What about the TMC?
TMC then goes to the minorities and says that we will be your defenders, but that has not happened yet. For me, I personally find the BJP version much more divisive in terms of the language they use, in terms of the explanations they have. I find it much more divisive type of politics than any other party.
Is peace in sight, or is the situation getting from bad to worse? Because now more districts are involved in violence.
Well, it is in a bad situation, but I'm sure that the situation will improve. I pray it improves because this is our home state, our home ground. We don't want violence.
You have asked for an all party meeting, but given the circumstances, do you think the BJP and TMC can talk straight, given that they are daggers drawn?
They must, for the good of the people, they must sit together. It's not a question of if or should, they must.
On that note, Mr. Isha Khan Chowdhury, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Kumkum. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.